A global financial extinction event is underway. Japan's bond market just went bidless. The US just held a bond auction and no one showed up. The IMF is begging Washington to stop spending like a drunk sailor. And while all this is going down, Elizabeth Warren's war on Bitcoin just failed. She tried to kill the Genius Act. Her anti-crypto army rallied to stop it, and it still passed with overwhelming bipartisan support. Stablecoins are now set to become the biggest buyers of U.S. Treasuries, and Max Keiser says that's not a fix. It's the final warning shot before Bitcoin hits 2.2 million cuckbucks. Welcome back. I'm Rustin, and we got a lot to get to. Send it!
This is the biggest story of this decade going forward, is the transition from the old way of doing business around the world to the Bitcoin way of doing business, which is purely anonymous. And this is the great achievement of the global insurrection against banker occupation. Bitcoin is the currency of the resistance.
Welcome to the resistance, my friends, and it's looking like gradually is about to flip. Suddenly, Japan's bond market is officially bidless. That means no buyers. The Bank of Japan is watching the fire, pretending nothing is happening, while 30 and 40-year yields explode to record highs. This isn't just a Japan story. One analyst said it's a global stress signal. When Japanese government bond yields rise, Japanese institutions dump U.S. treasuries to protect themselves. And if they stop buying, who's left? You guessed it, no one. The sovereign debt bubble is unraveling from the outer shell in. And this is how it ends, not with a bang, but with a failed treasury auction. Max Keiser is sounding the alarm, and Robert Kiyosaki too. And he's telling people to read Larry Lepard's book, The Big Print. Look at this post. What if you threw a party and no one showed up? This is what happened yesterday. The Fed held an auction for U.S. bonds and no one showed up. So the Fed quietly bought $50 billion of its own fake money with fake money. The party is over. Hyperinflation is here. Millions, young and old, to be wiped out financially. Good news, gold will go to $25K, silver to $70, and Bitcoin to $500K to $1 million. The Big Print. The title of Larry Lepard's latest book is on. Please read it. The end I have been warning the world about is here. May God have mercy on our souls. Probably nothing. Wait a minute. For the second time since 2007, the 30-year Treasury yield crossed 5%. And guess what? Nobody showed up to the bond party. The Fed had to buy its own garbage, $50 billion worth. That's not a market. That's a Ponzi scheme. And you guys remember who taught you that you can't taper a Ponzi? More from Max in a minute. But enter the so-called Genius Act, a bill that turns stablecoins into massive buyers of U.S. debt. Let's check out Senator Hagerty's statement on the bill.
Thank you, Leader Thune, and I would like to say to everyone, I look forward to making history, hopefully this week, as we continue to make progress on the Genius Act. What does it do? I think it's very important to understand this. We're modernizing the payment system here in America. We're going to put America at the forefront of innovation rather than having America behind as the caboose. This is a dramatic new technology. Innovation is happening here in America. I don't want to see it pushed offshore. I want to see it happening right here. The implications of this are incredible in terms of protecting consumers. Today, it's an unregulated market. What we'll do is make certain that everyone knows that stablecoins are backed by U.S. dollars and that those dollars are backed up by cash and short-term U.S. treasuries, the highest quality instruments, so that these instruments can be used for digital trade all over the world. This will ensure U.S. dollar dominance. It will advance our position as the reserve currency in the world rather than see the retreat and decline that we might otherwise experience. The other thing that it will do is it will stimulate demand for United States treasuries. In fact, the projections are that by the end of this decade, stablecoin issuers here in the United States will be the #1 holders of U.S. treasuries in the world. Think about that. I'd far prefer a benign stablecoin issuer to the CCP or other sovereign nations. So I think there's a lot to like about this bill. I appreciate the bipartisan support that we've received moving on to it, and I look forward again to making history with my colleagues later this week. Thank you.
Now, this bill, which just passed the Senate with a 66-32 vote, is being hailed by some as a digital asset breakthrough. It gives stablecoins the green light to become the biggest buyers of U.S. treasuries. But here's The irony. Senator Elizabeth Warren, the self-declared leader of the anti-crypto army, tried to kill this bill. And this is the same woman who called for banning Bitcoin, demonized self-custody, and tried to label Bitcoin miners as national security threats. And now, she's forced to watch the Senate approve stablecoin legislation that her biggest enemies, like Bitcoin Senator Cynthia Lummis, helped pass.
Well, this has been a long time coming, and a lot of negotiations have gone on to get this bill to this point where we had a strong bipartisan vote last night. We look forward to sending this bill to the House so the U.S. can establish itself as the country that has adopted the most advanced, forward-thinking digital asset policy in the world. It's something President Trump supports. It's something that we are dedicated to because the digital asset industry is already embedded in our country and worldwide. And we need to have something that preserves a dual banking system, that recognizes the U.S. dollar through our U.S. treasuries as the important global asset that they are and continues to be, as Senator Haggerty says, the impetus for our being the global world reserve currency. This week, Coinbase, a digital asset company, joins the S&P 500, the first digital asset company to join the S&P 500. Digital assets are here to stay. Among the 20 largest holders in the world of U.S. treasuries is a stablecoin. These are embedded assets that we haven't regulated, that we haven't welcomed into our country until the Genius Act. I want to thank Senator Haggerty for his tireless work on this. I want to thank Senator Thune for giving us another chance at getting this to closure. And it is a great advance forward, not only for the U.S. Senate, in that it is the first bill that's come out of the Banking Committee in 8 years, but it is our first effort to integrate our country into what will be a faster and cheaper means by which individuals, small businesses, and others can engage in business all over the world. Thank you.
Bill's supporters think this will stabilize the system by injecting stablecoin demand into treasuries. But Max Keiser is not buying the hopium. Printing fake stablecoins to buy fake treasuries is just one big daisy chain of fake chasing fake. Max Keiser is right. This isn't a fix. It's a death spiral. And the cherry on top? These stablecoins are backed by fiat, but many of the issuers are secretly stacking Bitcoin. So while Warren tries to ban Bitcoin, this legislation just accelerated the rush into it. Genius, right? Bitcoin broke 108K overnight, and now it's flirting with all-time highs. We're sniffing 110K. We are about to enter price discovery. Max Keiser? He's calling for $2.2 million Bitcoin. Sounds crazy. Well, if you want further confirmation about what is happening, just ask Jack Mallers, who said this.
I expect China to buy gold and Bitcoin before they buy the 10-year. The deal was, we'll run a trade deficit as the United States of America. We will be the world reserve currency. You guys have to buy our treasuries, lend us money in return. Well, all of a sudden, these long duration instruments, they weren't preserving purchasing power because real rates negative. Meaning, yes, you're getting some yield by owning the 10-year, but inflation of the dollar losing purchasing power isn't compensating you. Your purchasing power is being lost. And China is like, screw it. I'm just going to buy Facebook. I'm just going to buy Amazon. I'm just going to buy Google. I'm just going to buy Nvidia. I'm just going to buy Apple. I'm just going to buy scarce real estate in the US. And it's like, well, that sucks because now we're allowing you to have this giant trade surplus and you just own all the like dope shit in America and we get screwed and there's a giant wealth gap in our country. There's no middle class. We can't produce anything. And so the deal is if you want to buy treasuries with no tax, you can go for it. But Bessent is admitting their real rate's negative. So if you're China and you're saying, okay, the US doesn't want me buying their stocks, doesn't want me buying their real estate, doesn't want me buying their farmland, I can't buy any US assets without paying an enormous tax. And if I buy the 10-year, the Treasury Secretary is literally telling me real rates are going to be negative. So what should I buy? And then the US is out saying, by the way, we're auditing Fort Knox and we have a strategic Bitcoin reserve. I actually think the fact that the United States established a strategic Bitcoin reserve is unbelievable given the way they're re-architecting global capital flows. They're not literally saying this, but they're effectively saying, you got to buy gold, you got to buy Bitcoin.
U.S. Treasury is dying as the world reserve asset. You got to buy gold, you got to buy Bitcoin. It sounds like Max Keiser when Bitcoin was like $50.
Is drawing attention to Bitcoin, which is now a $400 million market, and it has room to become 1, 2, 5, 10% of the global Forex market. So that Bitcoin price, which last year was at $4, which is currently trading almost at $50, if it captures 10% of the global market, you could see Bitcoins trading for $100,000 a Bitcoin, $1 million a Bitcoin. That's the potential.
Let me ask you this. I mean, is there any, and I love the anonymity part of the Bitcoin. I think it really can get a lot of widespread appeal. But I mean, as it gains more traction, what kind of efforts could we see, or should we expect to see, rather, from banking industry and from, you know, these bank lobbying efforts to really block this? I mean, is it possible for them to really stifle the growth of this?
I don't think it is possible to stifle the growth, aside from just shutting off the internet completely. But even in that case, you could store your Bitcoin offline in a drive, in a thumb drive or something like that. So there really is no way to attack Bitcoin. And for this reason, it's gaining a lot of adherence. And just to point out, again, when you hear the words coming out of Ben Bernanke's mouth, in terms of there's no inflation out there, well, the Bitcoin price tells you that there is really inflation around the world as we see the price of Bitcoin, gold, silver, oil are all starting to ratchet higher. So Bernanke is clearly lying. And this is what's driving attention to something like Bitcoin, which is a true limited supply currency.
The Fed isn't doing QE, but they're quietly bailing out foreign central banks using dollar swap lines. These are weekly liquidity valves for a broken dollar system. They're firefighting and the smoke is everywhere. These swaps are a canary in the collateral coal mine. And you're about to hear why Bitcoin is the most asymmetric bet in history. But before we bring it home, look at our likes!
3 or 4 times, maybe. I gotta pump those numbers up. Those are rookie numbers in this racket.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and give us a pamp while we take a moment to recognize our sponsors powering this show. My friends, they'll tell you stablecoins are innovation. They're not. They're a Trojan horse for digital surveillance. Real genius is stacking Bitcoin, self-custody, full node freedom, and the Bitcoin way has got you covered on your journey to Bitcoin sovereignty. Get coached on how to secure your generational wealth one-on-one with privacy and cybersecurity gurus that believe in the ethos of Bitcoin. Now anyone can learn how to Bitcoin. If you're looking to get started, you can schedule a free 30-minute consultation with the Bitcoin way using that link in the show notes. Hey guys, are you heading to the Bitcoin conference in Las Vegas? Sure, you know what you're doing during the conference hours, but what are you doing after 5 p.m.? Didn't get invited to Michael Saylor's after party? Don't worry. We've got your problem solved. The Orange Pill app is the single largest repository of Bitcoin-only events in the world. Connect with over 16,000 other Bitcoiners in real life. Bitcoin is better with friends, and now you can zap them instantly all in one app. What are you waiting for? Download the Orange Pill app today, go hit a meetup, and who knows? The connections you make could last a lifetime.
One other thing I will say about Bitcoin that I think people don't understand, and this is part of the innovation that's really important. Think about Bitcoin's a commodity, right? The SEC said it's a commodity. It is a commodity. One coin's the same as the next. Okay, fine. Every commodity in the world, if you increase its price, the supply goes up. If gold went to $10,000 tomorrow, we'd mine more gold. If corn went up, if oil went to $300 a barrel, we'd drill for more oil. You would get more, higher price, you would get more. No matter where the price of Bitcoin goes, the issuance schedule is set. There's not going to be any more. It comes out, every block is, 6.25 coins right now, soon to be half of that. So, that's unique. And as a result of that, the world has never seen anything that really kind of looks like this, which is why, Ronnie Stofferly had a great chart on it. Showed, Bitcoin from inception has grown at 145% compound annually, and it's got a lower Sharpe ratio than any other asset. This is an amazing beast. It really is. And so So look, but it's volatile, and to some it's scary, and I get all of that. But I've long contended that anybody who has zero of this is really, really missing the most asymmetric bet that I've ever seen in 40 plus years of trying to make asymmetric bets.
Right.
So
Larry is right. There is no second best, and Max Keiser, who has been right for over a decade, Kiyosaki, they're all sounding the alarm. And remember in 2011, Keiser called Bitcoin the currency of the resistance at like $15. He never sold, he just watched the fiat system collapse in slow motion.
You mentioned one way to deal with this is obviously raising interest rates to tackle inflation, an obvious move. But what is the answer to this problem then? What can the US Treasury and the Fed do right now to deal with this looming crisis?
Well, yeah, raising rates is what Paul Volcker did in 1980. When the debt to GDP ratio that was a possibility, and it worked after a massive debt raising of interest rates into the 19%, right? But the debt to GDP ratio right now is 10 times at least higher. So that's actually not going to work. There is no solution. That's why people are running into Bitcoin. That's why Bitcoin's worth over $1 trillion now, why it's going to $10 trillion now, is that people are running for the hills. They're getting out of Dodge. They're dumping their U.S. Treasury bonds. They're dumping whatever they can, and they're putting it into Bitcoin. And so Bitcoin, we're going to see Bitcoin be the major winner in this sovereign debt collapse globally. That's how you get to $200,000, $300,000, $400,000 per Bitcoin. Everybody knows it now. Paul Tudor Jones, Stan Druckenmiller, Michael Saylor over at MicroStrategy. They're all openly talking about a speculative attack against the central banks. Borrow at that cheap rate, buy Bitcoin, and let them die. That's what's going on.
And Janet Yellen, for one, expects these inflation levels, rather, to persist until mid-2022. Do you think that's an accurate forecast, or could we see these problems persist into the years after that?
Last year, Janet Yellen said the biggest problem was deflation. Then they said, oh, you know what? It's actually inflation. Then they said the inflation was transitory. Now they're saying the inflation is going to be around for a few years. We're at the beginning of a multi-year secular inflation that will last quite a bit of time. We're leaving a 40-year bull market in bonds. It started when Volcker finished his job back in 1980, and Ronald Reagan and Margaret Thatcher came to office, and we've had 40 years of lower interest rates. Well, that's now finished. We're going to have now a multi-year period of rising interest rates. It's going to be worse than the 1970s. We're going to see major defaults across the corporate world. We're going to see sovereign defaults, and we're going to see more countries like El Salvador start to make Bitcoin legal tender to get out, and they're openly mocking the IMF. El Salvador is openly mocking the IMF on Twitter, saying, we're buying Bitcoin, and we're in a completely new era, a new world, a new global standard, as Rand Paul, a senator in America, has called on Bitcoin to be the new global monetary standard. Not the dollar, not gold, Bitcoin.
Now he's calling it what it is, a global sovereign debt implosion, and he's placing his bet on Bitcoin hitting 2.2 million, and his conviction has never been shaken.
To the Keiser report. Boy, it feels great to be a Bitcoin millionaire. I'm loving it. 8 months ago, and if you recall, on this show and on the Alex Jones show, I said that there would be a major financial catastrophe over the next 9 months, and we've got it. Bitcoin has absolutely triumphed as the dollar has crashed 90% against Bitcoin, as Bitcoin is set to take on the world and root out the banksters, as we sorely need.
This isn't fear-mongering, this is reality. The bond market is cracking, the fiat system is stalling, and they're trying to sell you genius stablecoins while the house burns down. Don't get distracted, don't get deluded. Get sovereign, hold Bitcoin, run a node, and opt out before the smoke turns to fire. And get your tickets to Bitcoin 2025. That's right, Bitcoin is taking over Las Vegas in just a few days. The biggest Bitcoin event of the year is heading to the Venetian May 27th through the 29th, and you do not want to miss it. The lineup is absolutely juiced, and the Simply team will be on site, and we hope to see you there. Grab your tickets today, and don't forget to use promo code SIMPLY for 10% off at checkout. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and give us a pamp by spreading the sound money gospel and set those notifications. We got a lot more coming your way, so stay tuned, and we'll see you on the other side of price discovery. Love you guys. Catch you tomorrow. Peace.
If you prefer to go down with the ship, fuck you.